kind of just talk a little bit about addiction. It's something that is really bad now, and then that COVID's hit. I think, and like I said before, a life's a life, no matter when they pass away. So sometimes we and we do mourn people who die from COVID, but there's a lot of people also that's overdosing too that are dying. We just don't hear about it a lot, but right now because of the COVID, victims. But there's a lot of people that do suffer from addiction also. Before I started to talk about it, the job I do now, I work with all different types of people, right? But sometimes it's people that suffer from addiction. And labels are a thing that we always talk about, especially, and this has nothing to do with anyone that even will be watching or out here, but labels, even with, being, an African American is tough, So you can only imagine that label, and not so much that, but the other words they call you. Those are bad words, you know what I mean? But it's labels that people stick on you, and then they think that everybody's that way, and that's not really true, you know what I mean? Even people that suffer from addiction, and just to be saying that, you know what I mean? Because there's other words they do use, you know what I mean? Like, and not being funny, and excuse me, like crackhead, user, you know what I mean? Dopies, junkies, which, one thing I will tell you, as far as when I grew up, I never really heard those words, but I also never heard my mom and dad talk about, these people this people that, which is good, because that's where it sometimes comes from when you grow up and you hear these things, you're like, well, man, they talk, they say that, so that's what they are, you know what I mean? I always look at, something when I, it's a movie that, they call, it's an old movie, The Jerk. It has Steve Martin in it, you know what I mean? He was raised by the African American people. Well, it kind of, but he wasn't African American, but with the way he was raised, he took it on, and when he grew up. So it was really a contrast in what people think now. I mean, if you think about it, but because they think everybody's this way. Well, it's kind of sometimes where you grow up at is how you act. So that's one of the things. And with addiction, that's kind of how it is too. And I've been dealing with addiction. You would think for maybe just the years I've been working with people that suffer from addiction, but no. I've been dealing with addiction since I was, not since I was born, but about 4 or 5. And the reason why I say that, because, some of my family members suffered from addiction. I didn't call it that because I was so little, I didn't know what it was, you know what I mean? And a lot of times they were doing drinking and different things like that. Now here's the thing. I mean, my mom and dad didn't drink though, but my aunts and uncles did. Didn't love them any less. I just didn't know there was a difference, you know what I mean? I didn't think that what they were doing was harmful to them. I didn't think that at the time. Eventually, through the years, I started to learn that it was. And I wish now, and I know we can't go back, but I wish I would have knew then what I know now, so I could talk to them. But, because they were suffering from the same thing. But everybody really believes that when it comes to addiction, the term addiction, this is the term. An inability to stop doing or using something, especially harmful. So that's not saying drugs, but everybody always goes to that when people think, well, you're addicted, so it's drugs or addiction. Sometimes it's not. You're addicted to anything. Just like I just said, the inability to stop doing or using something, especially harmful. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. But everybody kind of groups it in with that. With addiction as being with drug use. And the way I wanted to say, going back to my relatives, they suffer from that. Now, here's the thing: when you do suffer from a substance or something like that, people think that that's what you want to do. That's your choice. It could be at first, but then the addiction comes when you can't stop doing it. That's the problem. You know what I mean? And excuse me. And I want you to look at it in this way. Through addiction of anything, but I'm just going to give you an example. It's something I always use, but driving a car. Donnie's too little, she hasn't drove a car. But she does know when you come to a stoplight and it's red, you stop. And when you see a green light, you go. That's exactly, but you were taught these things. That's how you know how to do it. My dad taught me how to drive, so that's how I know. You know what I mean? But that's the thing we do know, right? But what happens when you're addicted? That green light. It's always on green. But I just told you there's a red light. But you don't stop because it's a brain malfunction at that time. You know what I mean? So that's, you know, kind of how it is. I mean, and if you take, you know, if you take drugs out of it and put anything like overeating, if you were overeating and let's say Pizza Hut's my favorite place that I wanted to go. Well, I've ate so much now, the doctor says, well, Don, you can't eat pizza no more or none of that stuff. You have to stay away from it. How many pizza places is when you go around here? You can go down the street, I mean, or something like that, and somebody tells you could never have it again because you eating too much of it. It's going to be hard for you to deal with. It's going to be hard for you to kind of say, well, because in your mind, think about it. Going back to my relatives, in your mind, I'm not doing anything wrong, but you're hurting yourself though. But you're not doing. But then again, you're also hurting others because they see you. They see you, you know, starting to be overweight, can't walk up the steps, do different things like that. And I'm not talking about people that do, you know, overeat. I'm not saying that. But if you don't understand about what addiction is, it's the same thing when you talk about it, but people don't see it that way. Also, people, you know, when they talk about, you know, people with drug, you know, problems, the things that happen to them. You know, like I said, for the sunken in skin or different things like that, the health problems they have. But, you know, if we really think about it, you know, if I tell you the top 5 most addictive drugs in the world, heroin is first, cocaine, nicotine is third. It's the third most addictive drug in the world. 4th is barbiturates and 5th is alcohol. So guess what? 3 of those, the last 3, are, you know, they're legal. You know what I mean? I mean, of course, cocaine and heroin, but that's what I'm saying. But you don't see it that way. People die, you know, and it's unfortunate, but it's slower of cigarettes than they ever will of any kind of drugs like heroin and cocaine.
All right.
But we don't look at it like that.
Right.
We only think that these people, and, you know, and sometimes it happens, you know, that, you know, health problems occur from smoking. You know what I mean? But we don't look at it like it because it's so long term. Just like when I was little, I never saw the effects of my aunts and uncles drinking then, till I got older. And then, I saw it so much. But, you know, at the time, you know what I mean, I was, you know, just watching them. It seemed to be fun to me because I seen them do it. My mom didn't, I guess it's not being funny, but when my mom and dad didn't do it, well, you know how kids are. Well, when I grow old, I'm going to do stuff that, you know, they didn't do or they said not to do, you know what I mean? But, and eventually, I ended up doing it. You know what I mean? And I end up doing it, and I'm here to tell you, you know, through the years of me working with, you know, people with substance abuse, I had a substance abuse problem. But I was never going to tell you that because guess what? Why would I? If I wanted to keep doing something, why would I tell you that this is bad for me? Or why would I bring it up? And you know, sometimes we talk about movies. You know what I mean? These are movies that are kind of probably you know, like drug related or movies that people are doing bad things. Well, sometimes when we talk to Jeremiah and Mr. McCray, we only talk about good things about the movie. Or, oh, you know, remember he did this, or he went here, he went all over the trips. He went to jail and died in the end. We don't talk about that. We only talk about the first part of it, and that's called, you know, that's called euphoric recall. We sometimes only think of the things that really make us feel good. We don't think of the things that, things made us feel bad. You know what I mean? So it's called, you know, playing the tape through. So if you play the movie through, oh man, I definitely don't want to end up like that. Just so then you know, well, maybe it was some high points, but there are low points too. So you got to think of it like that. And that's like I said before, with me, it's the same thing. You know what I mean? When I was, you know, drinking alcohol and things like that, I never thought. All I thought was, I know how my aunts and uncles did it. As long as I ain't do it like them, I was fine. That's not true. You know what I mean? It's just different because that's how addiction is. It kind of, remember I told you about those stoplights in green? Well, that's the same thing. Well, I was on green, but I never did think, oh man, I'm doing wrong. No, of course not. Because nobody could tell me anything at that time. You know what I mean? And at that time I strayed away from church, so that definitely wasn't going to stop me. Because everybody says, well, you could, and that is true. I mean, there's different ways to be recovered. There are a whole bunch of different ways. Since we're in church, of course, that would be the first thing. That's the first thing anyway. But it's hard for people. It's hard for me when you don't even talk about recovery. It's hard for people to change their life. Period. For God, nevertheless, we're using a substance.
That's true. That's true.
So how can we think? You know, everybody goes, oh yeah, you come. You know, especially something you have to have faith in. It's kind of different. You know what I mean? And it works on you. You know what I mean? Addiction works on your mind where you know, like I said, what usually you're isolated by yourself. You know what I mean? And yes, there is a part you want to stop, but there's that other part that wants you to keep going. And sometimes, you know, a day turns into a month, turns into a year. Now I'm back doing it full swing, and I don't even know how this happened. A lot of it is, wanting to change. You know what I mean? Just saying to yourself, I want to make a change. That's the first thing. So if we thought about it like religion, like myself, I was in the door. I came into church. You know what I mean? So that was the first thing. You know what I mean? That I did. You know what I mean? And this is not about me, but I'm just saying about the transformation of yourself, your life, of yourself. The other thing would be, lifestyle. You change your lifestyle. It talks about it, kind of, in the Bible it talks about that too, a little bit about that. It says, this is Corinthians, I want to say it's 15, Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33. Be not deceived, evil communications corrupt good manners. So it's the same thing, if I'm going, I'm coming there and getting a good word, but if I'm going out there listening, to just different things that, aren't really good for you to hear, and it only dawned on me when I started to have kids, how much bad communication was bad, because I'm sitting there riding and, all I gotta do is, just make it edited. Then we can listen to it. But that's not the case, And then when she's singing it, it ain't no good. You gotta talk to her. Well, darling, you can't sing that. But then why are you doing it? You know what I mean? If you can't, promote it, why are you doing it? So it's that type of thing. So once you start to think about it, changing your lifestyle is a big thing. But it's also hard to do because sometimes we think we're only doing it Don's way. Well, guess what? I did it Don's way for a lot of years, and it was no way. And it's no way because that's not the way we need to do it. We have to have a base. And there's different, recovery centers and how they talk about things. Some of them, like I said, there's faith-based ones. There's 12-step. So there's different ones. There's MAT, which is medically assisted treatment also. I should say that too. So there are different ones, but if we kind of think, more on that level of not being the person's addicted, but not being the fact that they're just, throw those labels of addict and all these other things to them. Because these are still people. Somewhere where I work, it's a lot of people that are sick. Really they are. And but if they don't want the help, it's hard. It's hard to get. But these are somebody's relatives. And somebody's mom and dad, or sister and brother. So it's hard to kind of see them go through that, especially when help's right around the corner or even steps away from where they could get help, but they don't choose to. So a lot of it, like I said before, goes on that. Relapse is a part of addiction, though. That's the thing about it. It's a relapse disease, which is hard to understand. I just told you there could be, when we go back to the stoplight, there could be times where I say, okay, I want to stop. And for a month, a year, you do, until something bad happens. Mm-hmm. And then we go back on green again, and we go, oh, we're Don at? He back out there again. Because sometimes he had, especially he didn't have coping skills to deal with it, he goes back out. That's why I say lifestyle is a big thing, changing your lifestyle. Just like in your phone. If you have Facebook, which is fine. I don't have it, but it doesn't matter. But if you were, addicted to things and you have a phone, how many of your friends still use? And I'm not talking about them because they're friends. I get it. But how hard is it going to be if I have a hard day and then I have to call them? I just call them up and it's just that easy to get it. Or whatever it may be. It don't have to be, like I told you before, it doesn't have to be substance. It has to be anything. How hard is it? But what if I clean my phone out, clean my Facebook friends out? I had over probably 1,100 friends when I had Facebook. But really, did I? No. Really, I had people that I probably encountered in my life, but no, the friends that I have, they call me because they have my phone number, and I call them, and not just to ask for things, just to see how you're doing. And that's like I said, I'm not talking about it. It's free to use Facebook, whatever way you want to use it. That's not my deal, but I'm just saying, if you really are trying to make a change in the lifestyle, you have to think about the people you're being around also. And the last thing is dealing with our ups and downs in life without either using these substances or going activities that are negative for us. We have to make sure we understand we can overcome this, but we have to kind of change the way we think. To change the fact of, and like I said before, when good and bad things happen, then where do you go back to? At the time, like I told you, if I was living the life I used to live, I would go try to hang around a group of friends and try to forget about drinking or whatever. But still, guess what? Wake up the next day sick, and probably still have the problem. And how does that work? You know what I mean? So you're still trying to, you know what I mean? Now we got two problems. The problem's still happening. Now you worry about the drinking. And like I said before, it is psychological to me. Now, I'm not everybody else. They may think it's not, and that's fine. But I just know the battles I had with the thoughts of it. You know what I mean? On a Sunday, on a Monday, waiting to get to Friday. Because that was my thing. Like I said before, something I was drink every day. But I remember I told you I didn't want to be like them. Oh, so I just did on Friday, Saturday. You know what I mean? So, but still yet, the whole time is you know, I'm thinking about it from Monday all the way up until then. You know what I mean? So it's like, but look what I told you about, you know what I mean, me and being in church and, you know, trying to do the right thing. It didn't only happen Sunday. So as long as I put the good things on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in me, then hopefully I can combat the things that I was always thinking about. It's not that I still think about. It's not, I still think about drinking on those days because it's a ritual. It was a ritual I did, but I don't now, but it was some other things, and, you know, having a family and things like that helped me, but also putting activities in my life that were positive helped me also, because it made me choose, well, I can't go out there, smell like, you know, liquor and beer and all this stuff, and talking to kids or talking to anybody. Because, I mean, your job sometimes don't just stop just when you leave the job. You see people, I mean, especially in Beckley, it's you know, small, so it's a lot of different things. As far as seeing people in stores and different things like that. That's more of the things what I was talking about when, you know, when you stop, you know, and come to church and then you leave out, you're gonna also have to, you know, present yourself. You know what I mean? And not only present yourself, people are always watching, no matter where you are. You know what I mean? And to see that. And I will tell you, but when my mom says I'm calm, I am calm, but I'm loud, just like I'm loud today. But sometimes it's perceived to be like I'm yelling, and yes, maybe I am, but I'm not yelling in that way. I mean, I'm just passionate about something, and I am. But being in church kind of taught me you have to kind of calm it down too, though, a little bit too, just and work on it and understand. That's more or less like I said before about, you know, with addiction. Understand that we may need help and we may have to reach out instead of doing it on our own. And like I said, through COVID, it's been really bad for people who have had, you know, problems with addiction. And some of the things that I, you know, just wanted to say very quickly is just changing some of the language that we talk about people that, you know, suffer from addiction instead of, because I remember I worked at Rest Care, and, you know, at the time, you know, the term was mental retardation was, you know, the people who were mental retardation. But that ain't what people call them. Retarded. That's the word they use. You know what I mean? People still use that word now. You know what I mean? They've changed the word now to intellectually delayed. That's the term they use now, not mentally retarded. And it's a big difference. If I tell you, you know, he suffers from, you know, intellectual delays or intellectual disabilities, that's a whole lot different than, oh, he retarded. You know what I mean? So, and it's sad to say people still use that, but they do. And the labels, like I said, that people use. Sometimes we need to really think about the words we use because it does hurt. You know what I mean? It does hurt a lot of people. And especially, like I said, our relatives, and I mean, I don't want to say everybody's been affected, but I'm pretty sure everybody's been affected by, you know, addiction in some way in their life with, you know, their relatives or themselves if they want to say it. I mean, like I said before, I battled with it a whole long time as far as me, you know, wanting to come out with it and say it. I mean, yeah, I mean, I can tell you I did. It doesn't, you know, make me feel bad other than the fact of all the things that, you know what I mean, the people that were put in my life that said things to me, I remember them now, you know what I mean, and put me to change, you know what I mean. So I think a lot of people that, you know, suffer from addiction do have people in their life that do want to talk to them. Hopefully they can, you know, get the word to you know, kind of change. And some of the words, you know, that you could say to them are, you know, you are stronger than what you think. You know what I mean? That's one of the things you could talk to them about.
Amen.
I mean, or, you know, when everything seems like an uphill struggle, just think of the view on top, and how it feels. You know what I mean? And that's a lot of it is that. You know what I mean? And these are the words I wish I could say to my aunts and uncles, like I told you, but personally, but that was what I would tell them, because I knew that the drinking for them always wasn't because they wanted to get drunk or anything. It's because they were hurting from the things that were going on in their life. and at that time they felt they had no other choice but to drink or do drugs and things like that. It also talks about saying you're worth it. You know what I mean? You're worth it. I mean, if you talk to someone about it, you know what I mean? And they are. You know what I mean? We all are. You know what I mean? At the time. But I believe, I know there was times, like I said, and I always go back to myself because it's easy to talk about. But when I come in here, there were sometimes I didn't feel like that I was worth it. And just because of the things that was going so crazy in my life, other than that, this was the only place I really found peace at. But then I left it and then didn't continue it. I just, had to wait till the next Sunday to get it again. But you don't have to. You can do it every day. Also, you can talk about, it won't be like this forever. And I think, if you go back to the trials and tribulations we all have sometimes, we always think it's going to always be that way. It's not. There's going to be different things. You feel hopeless and trapped, but you don't have to. Like I said before, I'm in the church, so you already know it's as easy as praying. I just told you, a little story about someone else praying. But I guess we just kind of, and if you don't, if you don't believe us, it's different. But, if you do believe in God and praying does help a whole lot. And I know that it does. You know what I mean?
Amen.
And no matter what situation that there is, you always got to remind yourself you have a choice. Just like I did. You know what I mean? But I chose, like I said, I chose other things. You know what I mean? And someone else might too. But if you think about it, you always got to come back and think, is this going to harm you playing the tape group? Is it harming you more than it's helping? And if it's harming you more than it's helping you, then you already know the answer. That's all you got to do is ask for help. You know what I mean? Or which is hard to do, but with help and with struggle, you don't have to do this alone. There's a lot of different ways to get help, to get treatment. Detox will be one of them. You know what I mean? To get treatment, and through detox they help you with, because there are a couple of withdrawals that will kill you. And when I say that is, people automatically think that, oh well, you can just quit. Let's go ahead and stop. Sometimes it's hard to do that, especially with alcohol and benzos. It's hard to do that. It's hard to do that when you're taking these. Taking these substances is hard to do, just like anything else it may be. Could be anything, eating or anything like that. So you got to think. It's not always easy. Just stopping and doing it. You know what I mean? So you have to kind of align yourself that way to kind of you realize the things that we need to do in order to to get well, and think about getting well. You know what I mean? I was listening in church when they were talking. A couple Sundays, on it and quit, saying, oh, it might not work, or it is going to work. You know what I mean? And thinking that way, you know what I mean? And having people, to kind of back you to think that. And that's all I'm saying. As far as, like I told you before, the last thing I will say, sometimes the stigma that we use on people, hopefully we can kind of, stop, those stigmas. Like, instead of using the word addict, which I don't use anyway. And like I said before, that goes a lot back to your environment you was raised in. I don't talk about a lot of people like that because, or any people for that matter, because I never really heard it in my house. But, instead of calling somebody an addict, what about a person with a substance use disorder? Because that's really what it is, substance use disorder and using that. Or if you're talking about their abuser, instead of using that, just using, a person that uses, and not so much, like he's a drug abuser. You know what I mean? And the last thing, it just talks about, just like I said, a person with different things that goes on in their life, and kind of talking to them, and just talking to them basically about, the different options they do have. And, just like I said, I was in there 10 years, I had a lot of options. I took options I shouldn't have, but now I'm trying to do better and trying to, and like I said before, it's, by no means am I, my daughter was asking me, before I came up here, because she didn't know, she said, you going up here to preach? And I said, no, I'm far from that. I'm far from that. I'm going up here to speak right now, you know what I mean? But the people that do preach, we really do need, hear their word and be inspired by them and understand that, they're special people. They're just like us. I'm not saying that, but they are special though. So, then we need to listen to them also. So, I thank you all for your time, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak. Like when I was young, and like I said before, I used to get nervous up here and speak, but I guess when you have, the conviction to do something right, you don't have as much, you don't have as much fear to go do it or whatever, so, and maybe do it again some other time, but I'd love to hear someone else speak too about different things also, especially, about God, so, and that's, personally, but, if the person does, who is suffering from any addiction they can go to God. Because he will be there, and they're not worthless. and all will be forgiven as long as they, you know what I mean, repent and pray for their sin, you know, pray and ask for forgiveness. You know what I mean? And that's a lot of me, my uncle said, you know what I mean, when he was, well, I can't speak about it, but basically he said, you know what I mean, you can be forgiven for your sins. That's all I want to say. So thank you all.
Thank you. Amen.